Tim asked me, I didn't get enough punishment during the 2 Hill District lectures, if I could do something on sort of the abandoned synagogue buildings of Pittsburgh. And when we say the eastern quadrant of the city, you're talking about when the Jews left the Hill in the 20s, they went to 3 places: South Oakland, the East End, and Squirrel Hill. Amazingly, this is really amazing, in Squirrel Hill, only 3 shul buildings have closed. They were all wiped out. Chofetz Chaim, a little Orthodox shul, is in the parking lot of the Bartlett Street Giant Eagle. Sheret Tefillah and Sheret Tzedek were torn down for Weinberg Terrace. The amazing thing about Squirrel Hill, every other shul is still running, period. And this Shabbat, you can go and worship in every single one of them. The same thing can't be said for the 2 other destinations for Jews, South Oakland and East End. Both of these were vital communities. Now, for all intents and purposes, as Jewish communities, they've vanished. Talk about South Oakland first. Unlike East End, which remains a vivid memory for many Jewish Pittsburghers, South Oakland has all but vanished from our recollection. South Oakland's heyday as a Jewish community ended by 1950, although baby boomers like myself, born in 1948, remember Jewish kids from Frick and Holmes School and Shenley High joining us in the 50s and 60s at Colfax, John and Doe, and Alderdice as classmates. Jewish South Oakland consisted of 2 main neighborhoods: an area near the corner of the Boulevard of the Allies and Kraft Avenue, now called Oak Cliff. As you'll all recall, that's where the S&B Deli was. And an area south of the boulevard between Bates Street and Parkview Avenue, which also had a very substantial Italian population. A significant number of Jews also lived in the area between Forbes and Bates on Atwood, Coltart, and McKee Place, and north of Fifth Avenue on Chesterfield Road, including my Uncle Lou and Aunt Ann. South Oakland contained 3 synagogues, only one of which still survives, but it's now located in Squirrel Hill. That's Tree of Life. I'd like to talk briefly about Tree of Life. It's a conservative congregation founded in 1864 as a split from Rodef Sholem. It moved to Kraft Avenue in Oakland from its downtown location at 4th and Ross in 1907. And it moved to Shady and Wilkins, its current location, in 1950. Now here's the building as it appeared in 1951, shortly after they left Squirrel Hill. You see it there on the right. Does everyone recognize it?
Yeah.
That's the main theater building of the Pittsburgh Playhouse. And the house to the left was a German singing society, which became the other part of the Playhouse. Now, it was sold to McGee Institute and then demolished in 2018. It's now a vacant lot. Now, only a small proportion of Tree of Life's membership was drawn from South Oakland. And like the YMWHA on South Belfield in Central Oakland, it was regarded by Pittsburgh Jewry as a citywide, not neighborhood institution. Now we'll move on to 2 other shuls. The first is Ohav Zedek. It was an Orthodox congregation, first organized in 1917 and met a Tree of Life. It was chartered in 1921 and bought a home at a corner of Kraft and Niagara to serve as a shul. In 1938, an addition was added in front of the building. Slide 2, please. This is Ohav Zedek, as I do remember it. This was at the very, very end of Kraft Avenue. And really, well into the 50s and 60s, lots and lots of people there were Jewish. Now, the Jewish movement to Squirrel Hill continued after World War II, and Ohav Zedek's membership continually dropped. It closed in 1975. The building was demolished in the 1980s, and now it's the City of Pittsburgh playground. Next, we move. Somebody asked about Addis Israel. It's an Orthodox congregation. And we showed up now. We could care.
Is it next slide?
3? Yes, 3.
Oh, okay.
Now this is Addis Israel, or Dat Israel, as you could say with the proper Sephardic pronunciation. It was built in 1898 as a Christian orphanage. It's still standing. and was bought by the shul in 1923. Unlike most Pittsburgh shuls, it was formed by a mixed group with no geographical area in Europe, simply people who lived in South Oakland. It was a very popular shul back in the 40s and 50s. And its high holiday services were held at Carnegie Museum at the lecture hall where Calliope plays. Now, the membership dwindled and the shul disbanded in 1993. I'll tell you a quick little story about it. That when Karen and I were married, one of the things we did was that after we got out of Yom Kippur service at the temple, we would sort of visit other shuls to see what was happening. And our favorite was Adat Shalom, or Addis Israel, rather, sorry, because they had their own break the fast outside in the courtyard. This little, really beautiful little shul. It disbanded in 1993, lack of members. Now we move on to the East End. And I'm glad we have Bob Rosenthal on board. We have one East Ender, I think, with us. Unlike South Oakland, which for most of its Jewish residents was a way station on the road to Squirrel Hill, East End was a vibrant Jewish community in its own right. It consisted of three communities. East End, the area bound on the south by Margaretta Street, on the north by Bryan Street, on the west by Negley Avenue, and on the east by Highland Avenue. Stanton Heights and Highland Park. East End and Stanton Heights were heavily Jewish, Highland Park much less so. The area's business district on Mellon and Bryan Streets had many Jewish merchants, including delis and kosher meat markets. East End was a sufficiently important part of the larger Jewish community that a brand new branch of the Irene Kaufman Center was opened in 1968 at Stanton and Negley. It closed in 1973. Is now a child development center. Peabody High School, the high school of the community, in 1966, when I was at Alderdice, was a third Jewish, was an academically distinguished school that could beat you in football and could beat you in debate. A United Nations of a school, Jewish, Italian, WASP, African-American, Asian, it had it all. East End also had 5 synagogues. All are now closed. And I'll discuss them in order as it's driving north on Negley Avenue. First, B'nai Israel. And here we have it. It's a conservative congregation located at 427 North Negley Avenue. The congregation was founded in East Liberty in 1911, and construction of the current building began in 1922, was completed in 1924. The building is a masterpiece. It's designed by Henry Hornbostel, creator of both Rodef Sholem and the main Carnegie Mellon campus. Now this is an exterior shot. Here are 2 interior shots. On the left in black and white of the ark, and to give you a sense of the size of it, on the right, this is the interior. Now, this building, well, we'll talk about its fate, but it's painful to see what became of this building. But to continue, along with Beth Sholem and Tree of Life, it was one of Pittsburgh's 3 great conservative shuls. Membership peaked in the mid-50s and began to decline in the 1970s. By 1995, the decrease in membership forced the merger with Beth Jacob, a conservative shul in New Kensington, and 2 congregations founded at Adat Shalom in O'Hara Township. The last service of the Negley Avenue Shul occurred in 1996. The building is scheduled to become affordable housing now, and the basement medrash will become an arts venue. Again, the sadness of losing this building. My parents were married here. They were not members, but had Rabbi Lichter marry them. When you go on the Adat Shalom website today, which I did, there is not one word that even mentions the pedigree of that congregation. The building for a long while was a charter school run by the Urban League. And it was in danger of being torn down. Fortunately, the new project will save it. Now we're heading further up Negley Avenue, heading north. We run into East Liberty Boulevard, then Margaretta Street. You see some people nodding their heads here looking at this. Yes, this is the Margaretta Street Shul, Adish Yeshurun. Rabbi Landis would be somewhere standing in front of it. It was universally known as the Margaretta Street Shul. Interestingly, the two main synagogues of the East End were creatures of the East End, not of the Hill District. Both the Margaretta Street Shul and B'nai Israel were founded in East Liberty. These were the only two of the 5 shuls that were the size and importance of the Squirrel Hill synagogues. The Margaretta Street Shul, just about the size of Polazzetic. And B'nai Israel, before the expansion of Beth Sholem, was actually bigger than Beth Sholem. Now, the street, again, the same story happened here as happened at B'nai Israel. A declining Jewish population killed the place. It stayed alive for a while. In 1978, Knesset Israel, further up Negley, merged. The members came down. But by 1996, they could no longer support the building. They had the idea of an Orthodox shul in Monroeville. It's a bad idea. One where apparently people were expected to drive. The congregation disbanded in 2002. The Margaretta Street Shul itself is now the City Ministries Tabernacle of Faith Baptist Church. The next shul, we're going back up to Negley Avenue, is Torres Chaim. Karen took a fantastic picture of the whole building, which we can't find. But this is, we found this on the Rao Archives website. This is the front of the newer part of the building. Torres Chaim was another feature of the East Liberty. It was founded in 1927. They originally bought a house which is in back of this part of the building, and they made a modern front with that base of Medrash. It closed in 2004. It was the last functioning Jewish institution in the East End. It is right next door, across the street, from that amazing Irene Kaufman Center. Karen, if we could have it. I think we forgot to show before.
Oh, we did show before.
Oh, we did? Can you cut back to it? I'm sorry. This is right across the street. You see the size of this building. It only lasted 5 years before it was closed. And Torres Chaim was across the street. Now we'll continue up past Stanton Drug. And now we come to Machzakei Hadass. It was originally founded on the hill at 1849 Wiley Avenue. It was founded by Galician Jews, which were Polish Jews, the famous Galicianers. But for some reason that no one can explain, the shul was absolutely unique on the hill because it followed Sephardic traditions and liturgies, not Ashkenazic. It moved to the East End in 1953. The Feinbergs were the philanthropic family who supported it. They renovated this house at 875 North Negley, a few doors up from Stanton and Negley. It disbanded in 1989 due to a declining membership. The building was sold in 1993. Once again, it's a residence. It also had Zadie Brean, but not here. My father, the Breans, if you're from the Hill District lecture, lived on Reed Street. They belonged originally to Beth David, which was on Miller Street, or also called Sheraton. And when that closed, my grandfather began walking to Machzakei Hadass on Wiley Avenue. When that closed in 1953, that's when he left the hill, because he didn't have a shul. They moved to Windsor Street in Greenfield. He joined B'nai Amunah. Now, the final shul is Knesset Israel. Now, you may remember this from the Hill District lecture. This is the last, well, we'll see how long, of one of four standing synagogues on the hill, two of which are imminently threatened with destruction. This is not. This is Knesset Israel, originally a Presbyterian church, then a Mormon church, and then in 1905, home of the Jews, and they will come out to, in 1953, if we could, I'm sorry, in 1946. Next slide, please. They bought this apartment house at 1112 North Negley. It functioned until 1978. It was sold, and once again, as an apartment house. Now, we say that this is no longer a Jewish neighbor, Jewish community. Nothing is left of it, not even a vestige. There are lots and lots of Jews living in it. And if you, as I do, read religiously the Post-Gazette real estate pages on a Sunday, you'll see young Jewish families buying in the 10th and 11th wards. And amazingly, for example, at Sunnyside School now, Jewish kids are enrolling at Sunnyside. Whether a Jewish institution will reemerge in the East End, I don't know. But certainly, we know many, many Jews who live in Highland Park, Stanton Heights, but they worship elsewhere. There's not a single Bryan Street, which had one kosher butcher shop after the other. There is nothing left of any of it. And the strange part is, of course, unlike the Hill District, the schools are still there. You can look at it. And I can tell you my own reaction to the notion of, no, this isn't the proper time to get into, how the East End died. Should it have died? What were the forces that somehow brought this neighborhood to its end? But the fact that you could look at something as magnificent as B'nai Israel and somehow walk away from that building, merge with some remote little congregation from New Kensington, and open a little conservative shul of not much importance north of Fox Chapel is stunning to me. It's sacrilegious to see what happened to that building. And thank God, at least it's not going to be torn down. You can still see the beauty of it, what Hornbostel did. And that's my speech. Any questions, whatever. But I think it's, I did it in 11 or 12 minutes and we're done. Great.
All of these congregations had, you talked about expired because their membership had declined to a point to the vanishing point. And I was wondering, do you know if the Jewish population of Pittsburgh or the greater Pittsburgh has declined or remained about the same or just relocated?
They claim with this new Brandeis study, we have about 50,000 Jews in greater Pittsburgh, same as what we had in 1920. What's clear is that in the East End, there was a radical decline in the Jewish population, mostly tied to the loss of confidence in the public schools and what happened to Peabody. And it wasn't so much of white flight with people moving away, but what happened in the East End was that young Jewish couples for 40 years, close to 50 years, would not buy homes because the public schools were not good. And now, as the public schools are improving and people are starting to move back, when you look at the prices, it's unbelievable. Highland Park now, $700,000 to $800,000 for houses. It's become extremely desirable. Stanton Heights is now very attractive again for the reasons always attractive. It was, newish homes with land and no crime and a safe neighborhood and nicely integrated and diverse. People are buying homes. And also you see people, St. Clair and Euclid, the heart of the East End, people are moving back. But, again, how can I say it, that people are much more mobile than they were. That it was once a great thing for B'nai Israel that it was close to Stanton Heights. Well, Stanton Heights is not a very far drive, but Highland Park isn't either from Squirrel Hill Shuls or from Temple. But it's a place that had such a feeling for people. And I know Bob probably can speak to it, I'll shut up. As a product of it, Peabody was the rarest thing in the world. When we first met those kids, and generally it's through the Ikes or at the Jewish Y or at Emma Farm, who could believe, pretty Jewish girls that weren't snobby. They were the most, they came from a high school that was 1/3 Jewish, probably 20% Black, and Italian kids and WASP kids and everybody. They had this openness and a feeling of democracy about them that Squirrel Hill Law didn't have. they really weren't snobby. They just didn't care. And the way the thing in pretty short order, there were a lot of problems there in the late 60s, early 70s, and people lost confidence in it very, very quickly. And that began the unraveling of the East End.
I have a few comments, Rich, about East End. Number one, this is not a Schul comment, but Peabody. But what you say about Peabody is absolutely correct. They had a great cross-section, not only racial and ethnic, but also economic strata.
Right.
And it was a terrific mix, and it worked. The second comment is the IK, Iron Coffin Center, the Ikes, that opened up in two old houses on the corner of Negley and Stanton. That's catty corner from where the drugstore is, where I spent, or rather wasted, my youth in that drugstore. They had pinball machines in there. That Ike's now, in the last year or so, was purchased. That big building was purchased by Mount Ararat Church,
right?
Which is a large African American congregation in Lincoln, Larimer, and so that corner is alive again. Okay, the third comment is in B'nai Israel, and I was bar mitzvahed there. It was a gorgeous facility. It was more than just that round main sanctuary, but you can still see, and I've stopped off many times in front of that shul under the porch roof or the portico, whatever your architecture wife would properly call that porch roof.
Right.
There's a gorgeous mosaic mural of the Lions of Judah and the Ten Commandments.
Right.
In gold colors and rich colors. And about 4 years ago, I was worried what would or could become of that, because I was contemplating that maybe someone would even tear the place down. And I was wondering, I stopped by about 4 times, and it's worth going up, stopping there and walking up the stairs and looking at that mural. It's amazing. I'm glad to see it'll survive. The last comment is, there was, to my memory, a very tiny shul on Highview Street. Highview is the last street off of, as you're going up Stanton Avenue towards Stanton Heights, you're on the flat part, and just as it begins to ascend till you get to Chislett and Morningside Avenue, those Morningside streets. Highview is off to the right, and it ends about 2 blocks down in a playground ball field near St. Raphael's. But anyway, I always thought there was a small congregation in a house on Highview Street, and I think
Bob, you're exactly right. It's noted in the list that Eric Lidgy gave me of all the shuls of Pittsburgh. The problem is nobody knows the address, the year it was started, or the year it ended. But
they didn't know the name.
It had. I can find it if you can. Well, at the end of the show, I'll get it. I'll find it for you. Yeah.
And I think there was a Rabbi Silberberg who lived on Callahill Street, was the rabbi of that place. But the Jewish legacy lives on Highview Street, because I understand that Richard Brock's daughter, Emily, and her fiance or friend or whatever you call them these days.
Oh, they're married now.
Oh, thank God. Thank God.
They got married a couple of weeks ago.
They bought a house on Highview Street.
Well, I'm telling you, I think I'd be curious to get the names of these young kids now buying on Euclid and St. Clair. They may well be of East End stock.
Well, I can't. I grew up on those streets. I used to ride my bike on all those streets. And on Mellon Street, where Sandy's Deli was, when I see that houses are going for $450,000, I'm baffled. 20 years ago, you couldn't get 50,000 for them. And I think the answer to that question is Google.
Yeah, maybe in part, right. right.
Well, that and part it's it's located near Lawrenceville, and Lawrenceville is becoming the hub of you know, the city now. John Spear, did you want to make a comment?
Just a comment. Rodef Sholem did not provide bar mitzvahs. So in 1950, we joined Tree of Life for $500 extra a year. And Rabbi Nadoff, single, lived on a third floor walk up on Whiteman Street, came the Moyle,
Right.
and he had his own children and 7 adopted from Korea. But he was my bar mitzvah instructor, and I learned by tape recording in 1950 and was bar mitzvah on Kraft Avenue because the new shul on Wilkins was not ready, and they put ferns on the stage, and I was bar mitzvahed in the old Tree of Life, which was really the stage of the Playhouse at that time.
Right, right.
And Rabbi Halpern was the rabbi.
Just a little anecdote about the Tree of Life in its present location. When they started to expand there for what is now their main sanctuary, they got the steel up, and apparently they had something delayed, maybe a shortage of funds or something. So for a couple years maybe, all that was up was the steel. And the kids used to call that the Jewish jungle gym.
I remember that. Yeah, so we were members of Temple at that time, and I wanted to be bar mitzvahed. So my parents were married by Rabbi Lichter in 1922, and I was bar mitzvahed at B'nai Israel in 1944. I had a instructor come to the house and instruct me for my parsha and for my bar mitzvah, which I still have on a tape recording from 1944.
Was that instructor Mr. Perlmutter by any chance?
No, it wasn't Mr. Perlmutter. I can't remember what his name was. I'm not sure whether I have it written down anywhere or not.
I thought Perlmutter cornered the market on bar mitzvah instruction at B'nai Israel. I was wrong.
and my brother's wife's family bought the house that Rabbi Lichter lived in on Wellesley Street. Yeah, it was a beautiful stone home on the left-hand side going down Wellesley Street. That was Rabbi Lichter's house. And he was...
B'nai Israel went through 3 phases of construction. First was the big round sanctuary, and then was the social hall classrooms that is most visible from Negley Avenue. But somewhere around the mid-50s, they also had a substantial, not substantial, but a significant addition in the back that you just can't see it from the street. It had a few classrooms, it had a very nice chapel, and it had a gymnasium. And
yeah,
I remember that gymnasium. It had a vinyl tile floor.
Gentlemen, if you don't mind, I'd like to, unless we have some other important questions, I'd like to discontinue this and go on with the agenda, since it's already 8:15.
Thanks, Rich.
Thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
I think we all very much appreciated that and got a lot out of it. Always.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You do a great job, and I'm proud to know you, and your research was great.
Well, so I had a lot of fun doing it, and Karen is vital. We drove around taking pictures. It was just great. Wonderful.
Okay, well, thank you again, and I think all of us will give you a thumbs up on that. We appreciated it.